Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and today we are back with the Comic Binge's 52 series binge. And I'm very excited. Papa Nick couldn't make it tonight, but we have his son, Nico, Mr. Baby. He's in the house, so we're going to talk about 52, and we're in a really weird spot in the 52 series, but I can't wait to get into it. But if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, interact with it, leave a comment, whatever you want to do. I really appreciate it. But yes, subscribe today, do all that stuff. And everyone who's already subscribed, super appreciate you. So I'll bring on the Reverend's back as always. Reverend, how are we doing today, sir?
Well, not quite as always. I haven't been here in a couple of weeks. So.
I know, you suck. You didn't show up last week.
What are you talking about? I wasn't slated for last week.
You were slated. You're always slated.
I wasn't slated for that one. That was the Miles stuff, right?
Yeah, you're always, dude. You're always slated. You
guys did a great job. All right, you did a great job.
You actually watched it?
I watched most of it.
Oh, I see. You know what? Dr. Dre has a saying: if your stuff don't move on the streets, you gotta put it back. And if I can't even move my own host,
I think can't finish it. What he said, but okay.
I said the beats on the streets. The beats on the streets is what I'm saying. Not the other stuff. Beats on the streets.
All right.
Anyway.
Good.
Yes. Anyway, good to have you back, co-host. Even though you're supposed to be on this all the time. Jeez. Anyway, Mr. Baby.
What up?
How we
careful,
doing
he's going to bust your balls. You're not too careful, Nico.
I was going to say, he's going to give me crap for not being on there Tuesday either.
Whatever. But you know what, though? At least you said you weren't going to be on it. At least you said.
Did Chris not? Okay.
Nobody asked me about
Chris, you're on every show. You don't have to ask.
The Spider Council is kind of hit or miss for me because I can't go quite as deep as some of those other.
You know what? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt in that one. All right. I'll give you that. You win this round. But that's no more excuses from you. That's
the Reverend speaks.
The Reverend speaks. So anyway, Nico, it's good to have you back here, man.
So good to be here.
Yes, I always, as always, enjoy. We were on the Star Wars show last time with Rob, which I had a blast.
That's a fun show.
Dude, Rob he's amazing.
Have you ever a good time?
You should check out his other shows we do, or without me, with me and without me, because he's out of control. I love Rob. He'll be back on soon. I'm actually going to be on his show coming up soon, something Star Wars related. Very excited about that. So definitely check that out here in a couple weeks. We'll be recording that this Friday. I got to read the book still, but luckily I'm familiar with it. Wink, wink. Anyway, so today we will be talking about 52 Volume 3, and I'm very excited about this because we're getting into in my opinion, the parts of the 52 binge that we're starting to get things kind of revealed to us, I would say, right, Chris? At least that's how I would put it.
Oh yeah. There's still a couple surprises though, if you've never read the series before. So keep your eyes peeled. But yes, certain things are starting to come into greater view. But there are a couple of threads that are still hanging by the end of the third volume, or in our case, up to issue number 39. That still stand unrevealed. Like, what's going on with Buddy Baker?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously they're telegraphing something with that, but who knows? But anyway, if people are in the chat, if you're watching live, again, if you're probably our friends, so I appreciate you guys. Anyone who's watching, I appreciate it. If you've read 52, go ahead and leave a little chat comment or leave a love note, comment in the section. Let us know what you thought about 52 in general, or Volume 3 specifically, which is issues 27 through 39. And I'm going to let the Reverend take over. I'm going to obviously interject and be obnoxious as always. But Reverend, why don't you take us over and kind of go overview a little bit what we'll get in some spoilers, obviously. I like to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but we can't help it all the time. But we'll do as much as we can. But obviously the big supernova spoiler we have to talk about. So
yeah.
I think that you can't avoid that, which is
that's pretty hard to avoid, especially because these guys were very curious about Supernova last time we got together for this binge. And so that's at least one question that has been revealed. But I think the covers actually do a pretty good job of sort of running down the broad strokes of what happened. So you see here on the cover of issue number 27. Ooh. Hey, Pete. Let's throw bombs. Oh, thank you.
Oh, Pete's throwing bombs, and
okay.
so is apparently Rachel, his wife. So
She just handed me maple marshmallows that she spilled.
Oh, that's
so they need to get
sick.
eaten.
I spilled them on the counter and didn't want to put them back
Yeah.
in the clean.
that's fair. That's fair. Make your husband eat them. I get it. That's a smart move. That's
I'm
a
a
veteran
garbage
move right there.
disposal. That's what I am.
That's a veteran move right there.
I love it.
I love it. All right, continue.
So yeah, in issue number 27 here, we see the Spectre. We also see Calypso, and that is a reverberation of what happened to Ralph Dibny in Identity Crisis. Pretty emotionally powerful scene, if I say so myself. The Spectre is an entity without a host at this point. He's been kind of raging ever since he lost Hal Jordan as a host, and things started to look like they might be becoming aligned again in Infinite Crisis, but here not quite there yet, as it will be in 1 year later. And then, of course, we see a little bit about what's going on with the head of Red Tornado, and he said a very distinctive number over and over again when he was attached to a different robot body and wrecked a bunch of people. Oh man, issue number 29. If you have any affinity for the Justice Society of America, this one was probably kind of hard to read for you, because not only does the team feel really incomplete, but now you have a whole new population of superheroes who are greatly discounting the work of the JSA and the heroes that make it up. So that's it was certainly hard for me. And then something I've actually been talking about a lot on this show for the past several months, especially ever since Knights Never Die came into greater focus, was 52 issue number 30. Because this is the only major appearance that Bruce Wayne has in the course of the entire series, and it's also chronologically the beginning of Grant Morrison's long form narrative with the character. So it is a pretty important piece. Take care, Andrew. Good to see you.
The man, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is a pretty important few moments that have to do with Bruce Wayne in this issue, but we also get to check in with Tim Drake and Dick Grayson, which is never a bad thing.
Nope.
I really like issue number 30. And then when we go
Not shocked.
Yeah, what a shock. Issue number 31, we start to see a lot more about what's going on with Lady Styx out in the galaxy, including for a couple of members of the Green Lantern Corps. Kind of horrifying, at least I thought, but still pretty interesting to see. And then 32, the journey up to Nanda Parbat by Ralph Dibny, who's still trying to find answers for potentially what happened to his wife and whether or not he's going to be able to contact her, even though she isn't part of the mortal plane anymore. Christmas in Gotham and Metropolis, and Nightwing gave Batwoman a pretty awesome gift. Moment that I greatly appreciated and thought that it was really fun. 38, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are starting to come into view, or at least a few of them are. There's only 3 that we saw. So where is that 4th one? There's another outstanding question for the next time.
Okay.
And 34, of course, things are not looking good for the Question himself. And that's also going to hit a fever pitch, which I'm sure we can talk about. 35, the first time I saw this cover in June of 2007, and it had that sort of ticker running across the bottom, Reign of the Supermen. And obviously that's a joke. It's a callback to REIGN, Reign of the Supermen, right after the death of Superman, when there were 4 imposters that were trying to take his place, one of whom is a principal character in this story. But Reign, RAIN, brings a whole other meaning, and it really
Yes.
does magnify the bastardness of one Mr. Lex Luthor. And we also get to see the revival of the main man in Lobo when he's
had to
kind of
say main
pushed to
man.
his breaking point, which is pretty wild to see. This, of course, we will definitely talk about the answer to a big question here. I'm going to be really interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. And then, of course, the finale of this segment that we're reading, Luther finally gets everything that he has wanted out of this project and didn't care how many people he needed to kill to get there, but he's there. And how do our heroes deal with it? That's the cliffhanger that we're left on.
Well, and let me just really quickly before I throw it to Nico here, I just want to say that I love 52. I think 52 has been incredible to read, and Chris, you've been making me wanting me to read this for forever. I always wanted
tweets of ours from 2017
Wow.
where you reacted to the casting of The Rock as Black Adam. And you're like, I don't know about this. And I responded to you by saying, read 52 and you'll want a Black Adam movie. Things worked out a little differently, I think.
Yeah,
but
I'll get there.
yeah, right. But still, anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
Well, yeah. So I just want to say that I would say so far, in retrospective as a whole, it's not my favorite so far of the three we have. That being said, I still love it, and I read 52, this 52 series, guys, and I say it every time, but I'm going to say it again. This to me shows you the power of the comic book medium on a very just you're able to get so much information in such a short amount of time, and you understand you can there's comprehension, easily comprehension and understanding and processing of information in so much of these pages that is so overlooked and underrated still, in my opinion. And I know it's written by legends, right? Like, I get it. The thing is, though, it's not just the writing, it's like of like the actual writers. It's the breakdowns by Giffen, whatever his name is. And I marvel, no pun intended, I marvel at the fact that what they've done so much with this story, with these comics. And this makes me think, like, why don't we emulate this more? And I say that because instead of like doing cross variant covers and double-sized issues, it is a consistency. That's the thing about it, I think, that has been missing. It's not just consistency of the quality of the story and the stories. It's the quality and consistency of the entire series of how much it, obviously when it came out on a regular basis, it was like, it's a well-oiled machine, but I say that in the best respects possible. So
do me a favor and break that out a little bit more, because when you say it should be, obviously I understand the consistency, but in terms of what else should be emulated, do you mean like maybe even more broadly, like another weekly series that tries to go for the same kinds of
maybe not that, because Brand New Day, because Brand New Day tried to emulate this. They even brought on the same editor in Steve Wacker. Yeah. So like I thought there was mixed results there, to be honest. I like the idea of getting a Spidey book as consistent as that. The problem is there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and there wasn't someone overheading everything. Like
how
Wacker,
many writers was it? Like 5 writers or 6? It was like Slott, it was Bob Gale, it was Mark Waid.
It was Guggenheim. Mark Waid came later though.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So, because I think writers were moving in forward, I think there should be more of a head writer instead of a head editor. Yeah. Like not an editor though. I think it should be a showrunner, like you said, like is committed to like, it's their vision with other writers helping them, but it's like pushing their narrative, kind of like what Hickman would try to do with X-Men, but that's a long story.
Finally coming to an end.
Yeah, finally. So I just think but I think that just like the pencils and like the layouts are so consistently done that nothing feels like it's so like for instance, I'm going to throw up some pages here, and Nico, I'm going to let you talk here in a second. I'm sorry, man.
Heck yeah. No, dude, you're good.
Okay. Like just for instance, I want you guys all to like comment on this, but like stuff like this, these layouts that the Giffen does, they're not world beaters, right? They're not like they're not gonna win Eisner Awards for like most creative layouts ever, right? These are true blue, like basic AF layouts that are just fan effing tastic because they are so consistent of telling the story of what they're of pacing the story out the right way, that it's a pleasure to read because I know exactly what I'm going to get every goddamn comic,
regardless of the fact that the pencils in a lot of cases are wildly different.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So Mr. Baby, I'll throw it to you. I just wanted to just get that out of the way here. I think I love this series so much because of the consistency. The writing's obviously fantastic, and I think the layouts are fantastic, and storytelling across the board is great. But I really do feel that because there is that consistent element of like it's just broken down so consistently every issue, that no matter what the writer is or the artist is, it's just like it's consistent that way. So, Mr. Baby, any comments, anything you want to add to kind of get us started here with you?
No, I love that you said all that and set it all up because I'm going to spin right off it. It's just this storytelling is absolutely outstanding, both writing and visually. I like how you said that you know what you're getting every single time because that consistency is there. It is a page turner. I actually read all 13 of these in a day because you just can't stop.
Yeah.
And the pacing of it, we talk about this each week. The pacing of everything, of all the storylines is so great because just when you have the thought, oh, I haven't seen so-and-so in a while, they're in the issue right after that, right? Or just when you think, when is that detail going to pay off? It comes right back. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
How it's so masterclass that the entire team was able to really like anticipate when a reader might start thinking certain things and just trying to pay them off in that moment. I agree with you, Paul. Of the 3 volumes, I don't think this one is my favorite, but
it's not bad. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's great.
And when it's all said and done, I might look at this and this actually might evolve into my favorite because of a lot of the pivotal moments that happened in this one, kind of seeing where they go. I think it's going to be a really big treat. And this does have it's ironic though, this does have 2 of my favorite issues of the whole thing though, that I'll get into.
Yeah, I want to guess those, by the way. I think I already know one of them, but we'll how about this? Before we're out and before you tell us, I want to guess them. I'll try to guess them. Okay, so no, I'm just kind of again. I'm kind of going off what you said here too. I think that this is it. 52 has been a page turner, and that is very interesting. It's such a crazy concept, and you read the reviews on here, right? Like Entertainment Weekly says as good as a show, and I love. By the way, this is hilarious. 52 is quote fun variety. Wow, that is a
thanks Variety.
Thanks Variety.
High
praise. But then I think this is what I think New York Times is ambitious. Entertainment Weekly, addictive. I think that to me is addictive is a great way to do it because if we weren't doing this show, I probably would have read it all like within like a couple weeks.
Yeah,
all of it, right? Because it's a show, I want to pace it out, and it probably is. I'm worse for it because some of these storylines, I'm like, oh yeah, that okay. But to their credit, and Nico, I'm curious if you think so too, because Chris already knows this by the back of his hand. I would say like it does such a great job of like, oh yeah, that happened. Like I remember this now, and it starts to all come back pretty easily without having to go back.
Dude, it all comes back. I went into this and I'm like, man, it's been a little longer since volume 2, and like 3 issues in, I'm like, it's just coming back to me.
It comes back.
It just comes
easily.
Back. Yeah.
So I just, going back to you, Chris, I'm just amazed as we read this that this is not just mined more. I mean, besides Brandy, I think Brandy Day was probably the one thing that it definitely inspired and spawned off of. The problem is that had mixed results for many different reasons, and maybe that's a binge episode of itself. With the council at some point.
Well,
But
DC did try to chase this a couple of times. We talked about Countdown to Final Crisis before, and it did have kind of the structure that you're talking about. Paul Dini was the showrunner on that series, and it wasn't good, unfortunately. I mean, maybe if
was the premise and the concept too much, maybe?
I mean, the premise was kind of loose, and what they ultimately did is they tried to craft a story to lead into Final Crisis independent of Grant Morrison, and you can't really do that. Like they tried to make things line up, or they did a couple of interesting things like hopping around the multiverse, but other than that, it just didn't connect. And that was a story that did not have to leave out the core 3 characters either of the DCU. Like they showed up sporadically, but like 52, it tried to focus on more ancillary characters like the Trickster and the Pied Piper were kind of a big part of that series, but just didn't do enough interesting stuff with them. And then after that, they did Trinity with Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley. And I think that one was better, but that was focused purely on Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, hence the name. But it also just failed to connect nearly as much as 52 did.
How long did I go for?
Trinity? I don't think it was a full year. I think it was around, don't quote me on that, but I think it was like 40 issues. But
and it came out like every week.
It was a weekly book. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things that kind of set it apart was that Mark Bagley, he drew like the first, it was 52 issues. Okay. He drew the first 10 pages of every issue and himself. And
that sounds like Bagley. He's a workhorse.
And that's Bagley. Yeah. I mean, and that was that kind of consistency was rather insane. But storytelling wise, it just didn't quite hit the high. I think Trinity is probably better than Countdown, but that's
Busiek and Bagley. I mean, it's going to be good because those guys are
there's
good.
There's going to be a baseline of enjoyment there, and there was some really cool character moments. But plot wise, I just don't think it hit very hard. And
Mr.
then,
Baby, have you read any of those, Mr. Baby? Any of those?
No.
Countdown. Okay, Trinity. No. Okay.
I mean, with Final Crisis, I almost recommend that people skip Countdown because it just ultimately doesn't have much of anything to do with it. It's long too, and it's kind of a slog to get through because it's so long. And Morrison did all the setup that needed to be done for Final Crisis with 7 Soldiers. Reading 7 Soldiers before reading Final Crisis is a way more rewarding exercise than reading Countdown. But in any event, I mean, that's just to say that, this was a successful series. DC recognized that it was a successful series and did try to follow it up, but they failed to do so as effectively as they did here.
We should analyze that sometime. I'll a little bit further of that because I think there's something to be said, and obviously you have all these different legends writing it together. It's because that's the thing too about this. I'm curious, you guys both, is it like do you feel like it's all them in one room, like going, let's say this, let's say that, or is it like it's literally one person writes one piece and then they give it to the other person because they don't show the credits of who does what. It just says writers, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
I hope they were all in the same room. That makes it cooler.
Right? That's what I thought too.
That makes it cooler.
I'm led to believe that the question stuff was Rucka, and it would make total sense because that also includes Batwoman and Renee Montoya. The booster stuff has to be John's.
But right. But I mean, like, what I'm saying is, why not? But why don't you just? And Mr. Baby will probably back me up on this. Why don't you just say, because they don't show up every issue, or why don't you break down literally John's this, Morrison this, Rucka this, instead of like all of them? That to me is interesting.
Because I
The
think
unity
that
of it is
even
interesting.
though one person may have taken the lead on specific sections, it was still very much a collaborative process.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, by doing that, it might diminish, at least in certain people's minds, the fact that this was a very collaborative endeavor between the 4 writers and Keith Giffen, because Keith Giffen effectively is the 5th writer.
Oh, he's
For all
1000%.
intents and purposes.
I think he's the secret sauce of this whole series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because without his layouts being that consistent and understanding the medium as an artist, but not as an artist, but a writer himself, like he writes himself, right? Like that guy understands and will how the medium works and functions, to where, because it's so consistent and he's the one doing all the visuals, it like Mr. Baby said and agreed with me, it is something that you cannot, it's so consistent, you could depend on it. And that's the thing about superhero comics that people wonder why people love superhero comics. There is a sense of consistency, usually, not all the time, but that's the thing about mainstream comics, like Superman, Spider-Man, and whatever. There is that consistency factor that we all strive for. And now that's, again, it's hit and miss with different people, but you get what I'm saying. That this has the same thing, as far as that, exactly what you're going into when you go into it, and it's great to get that. So
Sure. Yeah.
But
well, let's dive into some of the specific stories that were told over the course of these. I think the one that we should probably start with, just because I think it's a little bit less, I don't want to say less important in the broad scheme of things, because they're all important in different ways, but the stuff with the Question and Renee Montoya. Because this one, I think that one of the things that sets this particular subplot apart from the others is that it arguably feels the most personal. Like when we open up the first issue of the series way back in week 1, there's this antagonistic bent, at least on Renee's side, because she feels like the Question is more of a pain in the ass than anything else. And then over the course of now over 30 weeks, we start to see this very it's a platonic intimacy, but it's still an intimate relationship between the two of them, right? And I think that's one of the things that makes this story in particular so engaging in in terms of everything else that's going on. I feel like it would be really easy for this story to get lost in the mix, but I don't feel like it ever does. But what do you guys think?
You could go ahead.
I'll say I really love this storyline, because I think they've done such a good job, like you said, Chris, of creating massive emotional investment around this relationship. And just in the writing, I very much feel Renee's pain and sorrow that, quote unquote, Charlie is dying. And the kind of desperation she's going through to save him is, I think, what we all would do to our loved one. So the fact that they were able to convince me as the reader that she cares this much is so compelling. And the whole teasing of like not ever answering the question too also made it mysterious too. There's like this mysterious emotion you have. Like, I want to know these answers. I want to know what this is all about. But, like, are we going to get that before, the worst possible outcome happens? I also have an extra layer of enjoyment with this storyline because, and I don't want to spoil for people who are tuning in and haven't read it before, but I obviously haven't read this before. I know, like, I don't want to spoil this. Just, Chris, can you just give me a head nod? Is this what I think it is with Montoya?
Yeah, I already know.
Is this because I know, and I've read things of her as in the future, and I'm like, is this it? That made it.
It has to be. That's what I said.
Right?
It has to
and
be.
I never knew when it happened, and I think that I was extra hyped right at the end there of issue. I forget what is the last issue
let's
that
just
they're
say
in.
what it is, because she's
Yeah,
not.
okay.
Here's why. Because it's been not retcon. It's been like kind of like since all the different transformations of the company. It's like she's not even close to that. So go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah,
I think
so
that's fine.
we're seeing how she eventually becomes the Question herself. Right. That's so sick. I'm so excited. It's so cool.
Okay, if you're done, I do have some.
Yeah, that's all I want to say on it, because
okay.
I actually want to say this. You can go back to old episodes of the Vigilante 1939. I mean, we're talking 2019, 2018 episodes.
Oh wow.
Or no, it was 2019. I was slightly underwhelmed by the Renee Montoya character in Birds of Prey. And back when we were talking about, we had a couple episodes of like, what would you do in your DC world? And then there was talks of a character you would use in something. And I said, I think a very cool character that DC should use on screen would be the Question. However, the Renee Montoya version. So I'm a big fan of this version of the character. Let me preface that. That's why I'm so excited to see where this goes and why I'm so excited. I'm a big fan of the Renee Montoya version of the character for a variety of reasons. And I would really like to see that. And I could tell Paul is not on that same page.
It's interesting because you're right. Here's the thing. I liked the start of this relationship and the storyline more than where it is currently at what we're reading, and what I knew what it turned into, because I knew there was a female Question at some point. I didn't know it was her, and so I was like, yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And I'll be honest, like, I've been reading. I don't know how current you are with the Batman books, Nico, but like Renee is now the commissioner of Gotham, and I actually like that more. I think that's more interesting, to be quite honest. I don't know.
Just wait. It's not over yet.
Okay. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm not. It's not my least favorite of the 52 series storylines, but it's definitely dropped down my level of like how much I like their relationship, because at this point in their at this point, I understand where they're trying where Greg is going with it, and it's not written terribly or anything like that. It's just I don't buy their relationship at this point with what's going on. Me personally, I'm not quite there. And I wish I had a little bit more time to kind of absorb their relationship and their interactions and have more time together, because this is like 52 weeks. And at this point, they've only known each other a short amount of time. I just don't buy into it. Like she'd go this far. I know that he's done a good job of building up why she'd be like this and everything, but it doesn't really resonate with me as much as I think that it might for some people. Me personally, I just don't like it as much, especially where they're going with it. It's like so on the nose, it's like, you ever ask the question of who you are, Renee? Who are you, Renee? And it's just like,
I think you're glossing over an important detail, though, in that
all right, that's fair.
The loyalty isn't necessarily that he's got her on the hook for the answer to a question. It's that she, for the first time in a long time, feels like herself. She feels like her soul has been given back to her. We saw her at the beginning of this series where she was mired in alcoholism and just trying to find comfort in as many people, like physically, as she could, and she was moving from place to place, and she was almost living in kind of a transient way. And then here comes the Question, and we don't, at this point in the series, we don't really know why he sought her out, but he did. And in so doing, she has rediscovered who she is.
I don't know. It doesn't at this point. And again, we have volume 4.
Yes, we do.
I liked it more in volume 1 and 2. Don't really like it in volume 3 as much.
Put a pin in it. Put a pin.
That's
in
fine. That's fair. That's fair. So that's just me.
That's fine.
That's just me.
That's
just me.
That's fine. We'll be able to assess these in full next time, obviously. Okay. So
all right. So we said our piece about mostly with the question you would say.
Yeah,
right, Chris?
yeah. So
Okay,
I guess next one, let's go to the folks trapped in space, and Lobo, because the first time I read through this series, this was probably the one I checked out of most easily. But by this point, I feel like it gets more interesting.
The lanterns help, I would say.
The lanterns certainly help a little bit, but also too, I mean, the incredulity of invoking Lobo when they did, it's just like they were slowly amping up the pressure on Lobo's new lease on life, where he found religion and he was supposedly a pacifist, and all of that just comes crushing down in this one. We're getting closer to a resolution for Adam Strange and Buddy Baker and Starfire, but we're not totally there yet. But in terms of just how things played out and the threat that they had to face, which, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of showing how extreme that threat was. But how did this one come together for you guys?
My favorite thing about this one is it's never been my favorite one, but
yeah,
it feels so, when Lobo got included, it's so unhinged, but in like the best way. Like, this issue was electric. Like, this one, when his Dolphin's talking to him and they just go all out, and I love the ending. I forget what number it is. There's also like a decent layer of comedy in this one. Yeah. Like, I love the ending of whatever issue when they see Lady Styx for the first time and they're just like, oh. And then that's like the last page, because she's obviously the most, at this point, she's like the most visually horrific threat that's been laid out on the pages, in my opinion. So for them to show her and then it cuts to them like, oh, all right, so that's what we got to go do. Like, I laughed at the end of that issue, but it was also like nervous because I knew there was going to be some carnage in the following issues. But I thought the inclusion of Lobo was really clever. And like I said, a lot of the payoff happened in this volume. I think his climax with them all really, really works. And I even myself started to really become connected to Animal Man. So when all the stuff that happens with him happens, I just like, it's so fascinating, and that kind of reinforces a thought I had about this too, which I'll speak more on this when I talk about a different issue. But this story does such a great job, that we say this every time, of just giving you every corner of the DC universe and literally making you want to go explore and read characters that you never thought you would. Like, I didn't think, 36 issues in, I would be really caring about Animal Man, or, really that deeply invested in characters like Kate Kane. And so, like, it's just so well done, and it really is a treat as a DC fan to get to spend time with all these different characters, because they all have so much value to give. And I just credit the writing again, because they all just feel so authentic.
We'll have to do some kind of Animal Man binge, because with Grant Morrison's connection with it, Nico, and like also with even Jeff Lemire, who I think is a prolific, amazing writer, when he did the New 52 version of Animal Man, and I remember liking that when I first read it back in the day. So we should definitely do like an Animal Man.
I would be down. He became a character I never really read before, and I was very much a fan.
Even Jerry Conway wrote like a a story about Animal Man that I'm very interested in reading. It's very much about like giving his kids like the legacy of himself. It's it's a perfect time for when he wrote it, because I think he was younger. It was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago when he wrote it. So it's like he was almost in the same spot that Animal Man was in basically at the time, the way he wrote it. So I'm like, man, I need to check that out. No, I'm with you. Not my favorite aspect of this 52 series, never has been, but it's never been bad. And I think that's again a testament to the series, that it shows you they I think that's the biggest, besides Keith Giffen, that is I think the secret sauce. I think the other secret sauce is not just having writers who are good, because writers can be good and write bad stories and not understand the material they're writing. Happens all the time in comics or any kind of franchise. It'll be scripts and for films or for franchise stuff. Like whatever. Franchise stuff is it's very, very weird to write for, depending on who you are. But I think if people, I'm gonna give us some names, throw some names out there, okay? A Kurt Busiek, Mark Waid, Jeff Johns, a Dave Filoni, if you will. These people understand and love and really grasp the material way deeper than a normal, even like, I think Grant Morrison's one of those writers who I think he can understand it, but he approaches things so differently. He's not the same thing. I would say like he likes it, but he doesn't like, he's not like as entrenched, as the other writers are in the material. Like, because Kurt Busiek, Mark Waid, they live it, right? Like they were, born and bred and they stayed with it. Grant does all kinds of different stuff. Whereas Mark and Kurt and like Jeff kind of transcended out a little bit more now, but like, you get what I'm saying? Like these writers, and these creators, they understand that material. And they may not even, like Dave Filoni is not like even the greatest writer, right? Like he can write scripts and great scripts for Star Wars, and it remains to be seen if he can go outside of Star Wars. And I'll be frankly honest, I don't want him to ever leave Star Wars.
Yeah,
I want him to. I mean, God, I don't care what he wants to do in his life. I want him to stay on Star Wars forever. But my point is that the thing is, you don't have to be the best writer to understand. If you understand the material and the characters, that's what ultimately almost matters more than being a great writer in general for this stuff. And I think that you're seeing that heavily in this series, because Keith Giffen also understands the characters to himself. But like, I think the writers and like the narratives that they're building, they understand them. And you're seeing that even on things of these stories, like, we get right here, not my favorite story, but like you said, Mr. Baby, these are like you never thought you'd care about Animal Man, but you're into Animal Man because like they've written him very well and very interesting. So like, and he's endearing because he has to get back to his wife and his kids, and that's different than all the other superheroes. So it's understanding like that dynamic. Like Adam Strange is different because he has his wife, but like, Buddy Baker has a family. He has a full on kids, right? And then Starfire is like this she's kind of not a balance, but she's so powerful, but understands the world. It's an interesting thing because she's a beautiful woman too. So it's like, you see what I'm saying? Like it's a very interesting dynamic of like,
without her, they would be lost. Right.
Yeah.
Not that they're not lost, but she definitely keeps them more alive than they would be.
It almost represents, this is a very weird thing to say, it almost like she represents a temptation for like, especially for Animal Man. Like they kind of hinted that a little bit, like he's just like, yeah, but he doesn't care. All he cares about is going
in the beginning, but I feel like they dropped that really quickly.
No, but because the reason why they drop it is purposeful, though. That's what I'm saying. Like I think it's subconsciously, because as a man, I'm like, you're alone with Starfire. You're gonna be like, if you don't think you're ever gonna see your family again, it's like, hey, well, I'm just saying. I'm a man. Okay, I'm a straight heterosexual man, and Starfire is beautiful, right? Okay, that's all I'm saying. So, but I think it's awesome is you have Animal Man like not even acknowledging that. And they go out of their way to explain that, to set up, I think, this again subconsciously into our minds, and but consciously in our minds. So when we read later on the drama of his family potentially like leaving him and things like that, and they had that just shot in the comic where his wife is crying, sensing that he might be dead. So like those are all great moments that are built in, again, understanding how that impacts the reader is interesting. So yeah, I'm with you, Nico. It's not my favorite, it's my least favorite by far, but it's still really fascinating too.
Largest compliment I could give this to close on it is every time I flip and it's their storyline, I legitimately go, all right, here we go.
No, well, yeah,
I
exactly.
have to like get myself ready for it, but in like a really good way. I'm like, all right.
All right, we're back here. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, let's go to Ralph next. Because Ralph's been through a lot by this point, and
it's getting sad, to be quite honest, at this point.
I think it's kind of supposed to be, but
of course, but like it's just like, damn, bro.
But
like,
he's also got another sense of purpose on top of what his original intentions were, because of sort of the discovery of something else that went on with the cult of Connor. We see, I think, over the course of one of these issues, Cassie Sandsmark and Ralph sort of link up and trade notes about the influence of a fraud into that, but the resurrection idea, that's what was real. And Ralph goes to, in a lot of ways, kind of the ends of the earth to try and find out more about the dynamic of how death really works in the DC universe. And this is actually like a part of a thread that gets explored more significantly by the time we get to Blackest Night. But here, it's sort of like you see the vindictiveness of the Spectre, and then you see that his hope refuses to die. And I think that's one of the things that makes it, certainly made me far more endeared to Ralph while reading this series as it was coming out. But how did this stuff all come together for you guys?
The thing I like about this storyline the most, while I do think in some ways it feels like the most wild one, and like I agree with Paul, like it's getting sad, but at the same time I do think it's the most human one.
Oh, for sure.
Because obviously, I mean, if we were all in Ralph's shoes, I think we would be doing the same thing. And once again, he's bringing you to these really interesting corners of the DC universe with the Spectre and everything. And I'm the most curious for. So, like we said, I have an idea where the Renee stuff is going. I have an idea where the where like the booster stuff is going, et cetera, et cetera. This is the one where I'm really the most interested to see where we go with Ralph. And because, no way, dude, Zach Emmerich Muse, what's up, man? Oh, dude, he's the man. I just lost everything I was going to say, but it's fine because shout out to Zach.
Thank you,
what
Zach.
A guy. But
You're
yeah,
awesome.
Mr. Paul, go from there. It's great. It's so human, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
I didn't mean to distract you. I'm sorry about that.
No. That was so cool to see. Just
tell me who Zach is really quick. I don't know who this person is. Hello, Zach.
He is he's currently an SLP grad student, but he was / is don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Never mind. He works at the camp I work for that I told you about.
Hell yeah, dude.
Zach, so I was with him a few weeks ago, and he's into all this stuff too. So
that's awesome.
It was cool to see him tune in. He must saw the link on IG and came and popped in. That's super cool.
Oh boy, Zach, thank you. And I'm not a therapist, but I worked with many of your kind. I'll just say that. So your work is very appreciative of what you do. One thing I'm going to say about this is it's sad, but I'm not like, get over it already. Like, I'm not saying it like that. It's just getting sad but it's also fascinating to see. And that's the thing about like superhero stuff that people like don't realize. And I think the Marvel films and as of late have really kind of shown why we love superhero comics in the first place is because of things like this, like Watchmen kind of would do this too. It's like when it's put a real world spin on it and a relatability of like, yeah, if you could resurrect your wife, you'd effing do it. Right? Like you'd go to the weird Spectre and have him be like, "Oh, Ralph Denby, welcome back." And you're like, yeah, I know you're gonna like F me over somehow, but it's like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna do it. And like, I love the fact that we're going. It's again, one thing I love about 52, and I've said it before, is it's a learning thing if you're not familiar with the DC universe, and then you learn so much in a very natural way where it's not like, here's exposition. You learn it by the narrative instead, and you're learning it by the visuals also, and that's where the comic book medium is so huge. How the Spectre is drawn, or how the Calypso character and all the black and whites and things like that. Like all those things matter in comics, and it film tries to do that, but it's harder to do that in film, whereas it's a lot more natural and forgiving and interesting, in my opinion, in comic books, because you can play with static images a lot better. So where you can have Ralph Denby and Calypso be black and white while everything else is color, and it fits. Whereas in a movie, that'd be kind of just weird. Does that make sense? So I feel like they're really pushing the medium of this comic book world stuff, in a great way. But I think narratively, it just shows you, I think, what the story of Ralph Denby, of like, if superheroes were real, this is what someone would do if they were a superhero, right? Like they would. You're getting that insight. It's not supposed to be Watchmen, but you get what I'm saying. It's that real world aspect where it's like, instead of just being like, I'm gonna beat up bad guys, like no, this guy's gonna go on and go to like far ends of the earth with a freaking Dr. Fate helmet and like go and find the darkest corners to figure out if he can resurrect his dead wife. It's fascinating stuff. It's sad, it's a bummer, but it's very interesting from a narrative standpoint, but I think also a lore standpoint, which I love about these franchises. So it is the best of both worlds, in my opinion, and I think a big strength to the 52 series.
Yeah, and I also just loved, as a quick aside too, that when Ralph goes to the Flash Museum, it's like this elongated room. If Barry were still alive, this would be a whole wing. And I was like, yeah, it probably would be.
Damn, bro.
Well,
right.
there's not really a cover for it, but let's talk about these folks. Because
I have some stuff. I don't know if I meant to bring it on here. I'm not sure. But yeah, go ahead, continue. Well, I have it on here. No, we're good. I have it. We're good.
Most of the, I think, development in this round of issues for the Black Marvel family was pretty focused on Osiris. The Teen Titans were opening their ranks up again, and Osiris and Sobek went to try and see if they could make more of a difference. And they were turned down pretty much because of guilt by association. But then at the same time, too, we also see coordinated character assassination. Amanda Waller sics a new version of the Suicide Squad on Osiris and on Isis. And it results in Osiris losing his temper and splitting the Persuader in half. And a very keenly placed camera captured the moment, and Amanda Waller distributed it all over the world. And now Osiris is kind of on the outs in a position that Black Adam himself is very used to being in. And he tries to, I use the term comfort rather loosely because you're talking about Black Adam, but I think it applies, because Osiris is very much kind of crushed by being perceived kind of as an evildoer, or at the very least, someone who believes in the kind of brand of justice that Black Adam does, even though Black Adam himself, as we've seen over the course of this whole series, has evolved rather significantly because of the influence of ISIS. So,
and I love that too. Yeah.
Just talk to me about checking in with this
Mr.
family,
Baby,
because not all that much happened with them, but some stuff.
Yeah,
some stuff happened. Yeah, go ahead.
This stuff is really good. I continuously love the Black Adam stuff in here. Continuously makes me dislike the movie more, but that's fine. I'm going to say this every show.
That's fair. That's fair.
No disrespect to anyone involved. There was some good stuff in there, but this stuff is better. Osiris just being wanting to join the Titans, I think is just once again, a lot of these characters feel so human and authentic for where they are in their life and in their respective situations. I love the family showing themselves in their human form to the world. I thought that was very interesting. And then why I had kind of like an extra shot of dopamine with this, particularly with this particular storyline, is it was like after reading the JSA one and after seeing all like the Lantern stuff sprinkled in the Starfire storyline, I legitimately, like an issue or two before this, I swear to God, was like, I feel like the only team they haven't used is the Suicide Squad, huh? And then comes the end of the issue prior to this. I'm like, and there's Waller and there's Captain Boomerang. The minute it showed his thing, I went, oh, yeah. It cut to the team, though, and I went, okay, I don't know any of these people, Captain Boomerang. But it ended up being, I like the way that they were used. Oh, well, obviously I know Atom Smasher, but I really like the way that they were used. I also dig this design for Captain Boomerang. I won't lie to you all. But I like they were using, and I do like what happens to Osiris losing his temper and, like you said, quite literally splitting the Persuader in the most graphic of ways. But it just added another layer. To them because I did not know where this one was going. And then even when they involved the squad here, I'm like, okay, let's see what happens here. And I think it's great, and I think it puts Black Adam, like you said, Chris, in a very familiar situation.
Well, and I just want to say too, we're running a little bit late, so we wrap up here. just we're I a couple things I'll say this.
I can tell Chris is excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited too. I think this has been definitely the most interesting aspect. I think I know they collected all the 52 issues, excuse me, let me say it clearer. In a trade, I think, for Black Adam movie, if I'm not mistaken. So I think so. And honestly,
they did it before the movie, but yes.
Did they? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Specifically, yeah.
To be honest, I could see why, because it's a very strong narrative, and I think it's really well written. Obviously, by Jeff. It's obviously Jeff Johns, like you were saying, Chris. Everyone's got their own. I'm assuming anyway. That being said, I will say that I love this. Is my favorite aspect of Volume 3 here, because of Osiris, but I think because of the setup with the Teen Titans, I loved when he came and was like, I'm here to join. Like, he has very innocent intentions. And they're like, I don't know, homie. Like, I don't think that's going to work. You know who you are and everything. And that just it was very interesting how they kind of rationalized it. And I thought that, again, I like the more realistic approach. And they try to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's like, I don't know, man. And they were right. And I also loved, I love the Suicide Squad like premise. I think it's a brilliant premise. I love like ragtag teams like this in comic books. I freaking superheroes specifically, obviously. I love it. The Persuader was an awesome character. I was bummed to see him.
Yeah.
Like I was like, man, obviously I'm sure he's alive and well in the new DC universe, but this stuff was great. I love this stuff.
Persuader's way more of a Legion villain too, normally. So.
That's cool. Yeah. So again, like, I love this. Again, more learning about the history of the DC universe by narrative, not by here's exposition. Like, you're giving me story to learn about. Like, I had no idea he's a Legion character, but now I'm interested in the character because of how he looks and everything. It's just very interesting. So,
interestingly enough, the Persuader is the only costumed supervillain that Clark encounters in Smallville season 8, I think, when the Legion actually show up on that show.
That's him. Okay. I remember he had a hammer. I know he had a hammer or something.
An axe,
axe, whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to say, wrap it up real quick. Not a lot to say more than that, but this was my favorite aspect though. It's short. They're not in it a ton, but I love this aspect. My favorite aspect was all this right here.
Yeah. Well, we got 2 more stories to get to, so let's jump to the next one. Infinity Inc. Or what's left of it. I think that I don't think that Lex Luthor was fooling anybody that was reading this series. You know, they did a pretty good job of showing that, yeah, he's still the bastard he's always been, but he might have more of a command of public image, but he certainly never fooled John Henry Irons. And Nat's sort of perspective on him, yeah, like she kind of accepted who he had been, but I think that she sort of felt like she had hoped he had turned a corner. And by the time we get to the end of this volume, it is very clear that this is the Lex Luthor we have always known. He doesn't care how many people need to die to get him what he wants. All of these people that are falling out of the sky were a stepping stone to get him closer to the powers of Superman. And we are setting the stage really for a knockdown drag out between the heroic forces, particularly as led by Steel, the standard bearer of the S Shield for all intents and purposes at this point, and Lex Luthor. So, what do you think, guys?
This was, I mean, like you said, he wasn't fooling anyone, but this was my favorite kind of payoff of the whole thing. Reading him finally say like I'm Superman. Issue
was awesome.
30, issue 34 was one of my two favorites because you had it kind of start with the Suicide Squad stuff that we were just talking about, then cut to Lex interrogating Clark, which was like very like what's going on, and then the end of this issue is so effing riveting with the countdown to the new year, Charlie dying, Lex going on the roof to click, and of course it ends with an incredible cliffhanger going into the next issue, and then like you pick up and see this is what was happening. It was such it felt, this issue in particular felt so cinematic, like in episode 9 of like Game of Thrones, where you just see like the edits and the cuts and you're like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and just it was so cool. That's really all I have to say about it. And I think this was the one, I think, storyline where, not that I didn't pay attention, but like I always knew it was going to be something like this. So every time it like cut to him talking, I would be like, yeah, or every time it was like a Natasha thing or an Infinity Inc., I think I was just waiting for the huge thing to happen. And then it finally did in the most epic of fashions.
Well, I think it's a great point to bring up. Like, this was never like, again, my one where I'm like riveted by the whole Infinity Inc. storyline. Though I did like the initial like new JLA they introduced, and then how the Infinity Inc. kind of came in and was like, hey, we're gonna do something different here. I did, the fact they were backed by LexCorp, that was LexCorp, I should say. LexCorp, that was very interesting. I think what ultimately I knew there's something that Luthor was doing, but this was something that I didn't expect. And the line he says at the end, it's perfect. And it definitely makes reading all those subplots of the Infinity Inc. storyline and with John Henry Irons and his niece, it makes all that worth it to read this. And now I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I invested so much of that time, and that's the beauty of 52 as well, is that you're not stuck on one issue of like, oh, I have this issue to read through. Because let's be real, if I had to read a whole issue of space stuff, I may not love that as much completely, right? But at first, the way they balance it out over time and everything is perfect. And that by the time we get to this point, like, all of it feels earned, and especially the Infinity Inc. stuff. But that's the stuff that I'm probably like, hey, I've grown to love it more and more. And now I'm massively into it because of the reveal of this part right here, which I'll be honest, was not anticipated. I knew he was behind something or with everything, but not completely with this. So I love this. This is great. You're right. The cover of, or the cover, quote unquote, of Reign of the Superman is oops, wrong one. Sorry. Chris, you're killing me here.
That's the Reign of the Superman cover.
Yeah, sorry. Here we go. Well, I meant like the Superman, like this. I thought you meant cover of like almost like a joke, like a cover song was what you were referring to.
Yeah.
But no, like the whole idea of this the figurative reign of Superman was very interesting and cool. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons, gentlemen, I want to keep the train moving after we're done with 52 is because even though we didn't really know it reading it at the time, this was followed upon in a hell of a way that you guys just have to see. Because once the big guy is back, there's a lot Luther needs to answer for. And it's fun to watch. So just leave it there. But let's move on to the last story. Because you guys were very curious about who was behind the mask of Supernova. Everybody seemed to have their own ideas. Cassie Sandsmark was really hoping it was Connor. Luther himself was convinced it was Superman. Clark Kent obviously knew it wasn't, as we saw in this set of issues. But something more malevolent is at play here, and Rip Hunter, the Time Master himself, had to enlist the services of someone who could actually pull off the deception that was necessary to stay one step ahead of this apparently evil force. And of course, talking about Michael John Carter, aka Booster Gold. Nico, you were particularly kind of chomping at the bit to find out who Supernova was. How did this play out for you?
It delivered really well. It was, I was really into this. What I've always heard is that this is a big run for Booster Gold. And I think when he went away early on, I thought, okay, there has to be something that happens with his character still. And when we saw Skeets kind of being shady, that was just another hook. But just once again, I thought this was so epic, especially with them being, hidden in the Fortress of Solitude. Then when he comes out, it was a really fun. I read it in a really fun way. That kind of I hate to call it an exposition dump, but when he kind of says everything that happened, he kind of does the thing where he explains the plan. It's like in like a whodunit thing. It kind of felt like that, where he came out and he's like, "What's up, MFer? Like, we did this, and that." And I just getting to know this character and his personality so well, I think it really fit that's how he would kind of come out of there and talk about it. And
but also Rip was telling him, keep him talking.
Yes, which was fun too. So it was like this fun stall. And I think it once again, there was a lot of, I think, curiosity for me early on with the stuff with Rip Hunter, with the stuff with Skeets. So this really delivered for me. I'm glad to have him back. I think it was pretty brilliant how they pulled it off. And it was really fun. I don't know what, like, this was such a fun reveal. It had me kind of like going rah-rah for him when he came out of there. And I'm very pumped to see where this goes.
So were you able to stay away from it until that moment?
I stayed away from it until this. I swear to you. I had no clue. It was, we're really teased when he's talking to Ralph on the roof, right?
Yeah.
And there's a tease.
And Ralph,
like,
of course, is
how'd you know? Yeah. And then I always knew it wasn't Superman. And I thought it might be Superboy until the Cassie issue. And I'm like, okay, it's not him either. And I never thought it was Booster. I really didn't. And I at one point thought it was Lex. I'll tell you that. At one point I thought it was Lex I thought he already took the Everyman or whatever.
Okay.
And was kind of playing each side, and his whole reveal was going to be like, I did it each, right? Like, I was the hero of the city and I also controlled all this stuff. I'm glad it wasn't, though. I'm glad it was this. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad what happened with Lex. So this was so dope. It was fun.
Great.
I like this a lot. I had no idea who he was, or it would be Booster, until he uses light powers the first time. Like when he transported those people, I went,
that's
it's Booster. Oh my God, it's Booster. Okay. Like it's the first thing but I had no idea until then. I gotta be honest. I think it's a shame that they're not using the supernova costume with someone, because it's a pretty rad, like, simple design. To be quite honest, I'm like pretty into it. Like, if anyone in DC, obviously no one in DC gives an F about our show, but like, if they're watching, they should bring back the supernova character's costume and name and give him to somebody, because I think that's a pretty cool costume and character name. So just throw it out there. I think it's don't waste it. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I like this, dude. The Candor reveal was rad.
Yeah,
Like, that was probably my favorite part of that story. It was like when he's like, we're in Candor. That's how, and then Skeet shows up and it's like, oh my God, I love all that. Yeah, this is, again, like, they've taken these weird corners of the DC universe and really emphasize how great they are. And it shows you that these franchises, these universes, I should say, not even franchises, the whole universe of DC or Marvel or whatever, there's so much rich storytelling in these like lesser characters, that if they have a writer who, again, understands the character and appreciates the character and loves the character and loves the lore that they're involved in, and those are all, to hit all three of those is not easy. On top of being a gifted writer, by the way, this is not, I'm just saying, like, that those are all hard to come by. It's becoming more common, I would say, nowadays, because people are growing up on, whatever. But that being said, it's cool to get Booster Gold a really unique perspective in this, and I can't wait to see where it goes next, for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I first read this, and when I picked up the cover, I was just so focused on what you see of Booster. It didn't even register to me until afterward that the rest of his body was Supernova's costume. So it was more surprising than I think it otherwise would have been the first time I read it. And yeah, this definitely hit me in all the right places. And thankfully, I can say too, we haven't seen the end of the surprises on this one yet.
I can't wait.
I
Incredible.
I'm so excited.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm stoked. Yeah. I'm stoked. But
yeah, there's big surprises still on this one, and with the Black Adam family, and or the Black Marvel family, I should say, and kind of with Lex. We got a lot of stuff to resolve here, barreling toward the finale, and then of course we'll get to 1 year later, which we will also be covering in a limited capacity for a few stories. So so long since we had Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Those three are absolutely there, and then Booster, definitely. So
excellent. Well, I think it's a good place to kind of wrap it up. We're a little over. Sorry, Nico. I know you're late over there.
It's all good.
I know, man.
It was worth it. It was well worth the time.
Yes, I agree. And for those who are wondering, I think, again, if you're already watching this, you're probably already read it. I think this is not my favorite of the three, but it's still like damn good comics. It's still damn good comics, and I'm glad I read it. And and the cool thing about 52 so far after 3 volumes, and I think Chris is a testament to this. Obviously, it's one I would totally be all about reading again. It is easily, I can already tell.
Reading it again is fun, knowing what you know going into it again.
Yeah. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for volume 4. Hopefully we can get Papa Nick in on next time.
Yeah. I hope so.
But Mr. Baby, why don't you explain where people can find you and all your shenanigans?
Yeah, right here on Twitter. You can follow at the Vigilante 1939. That's the show I do with my dad and our good friend Zeddy. I of course have appeared on several episodes of the show at Nico Knows Film on TikTok, and then I will be actually fun that I get to say this here. And I don't know if he's still watching, but I get to return. I'm returning to the Italian Spider-Man Coalition this coming episode after a slight hiatus. So I'm very happy to be back with my man Pete Vera, talking about some Spidey stuff. So that'll be really, really fun.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, Reverend, you are not just someone who's just, I invite. You are part of the institution. You know this. And when I give reading material out there, you're always on there. I say
He's still trying to let you know that you were welcome on the Spidey show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Paul.
Or anything, or any Star Wars show if you want. But I understand. We are busy men. So we are not men. We are busy.
Preschool started up again.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a thing. You know, my daughter you have to line up before you go into circle time. And my daughter was like standing apart from the line, and my wife took a picture of it. And I was so proud. It's like, she's literally standing apart from the crowd. I
love that.
I love it. Anyway, find me on the tweeting platform at Chris Clow, CHRISCLOW. Check out Discovery Debrief Star Trek podcast. Right now, season 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks is on the air, and we are planning on doing a check-in for that. But we also have an episode coming up soon that compares the first season finale of Strange New Worlds with the episode it's largely based on from Star Trek, the original series, called Balance of Terror. That's a fun conversation that I have with Cicero and Ty on that show. And then, of course, Comic Binge. Keep your eyes peeled on the Comic Binge. We've got a lot of good stuff coming down the pike, not the least
Next
of which
month
being the return of Knights Never Die.
Yes, next month is going to be when we announce it. We got some things in the fire that are going to be, it's going to be nuts. So just know it's going to be both very webtastic, you could say, but also
electronic.
Spooky.
And spooky.
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of there's some spooky stuff in there too. So anyway, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Comic Binge YouTube channel. Go to Instagram, go to Twitter, all that jazz. Really appreciate everyone who already has. Appreciate everyone who's already leaves comments. Super appreciate it. And we will be back next week with doing finally some Marvel stuff. We'll be covering the latest Avengers run, which was by Jed McKay. And we're reading Timeless. And I think Avengers issue 5 could be up. Oh, no, it won't be up by then. So issues 1 through 4. And then I thought it'd be cool to talk about this Avengers series because of the Kang Dynasty stuff. It's all in the MCU, but also of the Avengers run as it is, because it's just interesting to kind of compare it to Jason Aaron to now Jed McKay and talk about.
We haven't done modern books or current run books since we did 3 Jokers back when this was a podcast.
Yeah. So I wanted to try to do more current stuff too. So I wanted, we'll have Ricky Church on the show next week for that. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, shout out to Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky will be on. Yeah, Ricky's rad. So
we got to do Gargoyle of Gotham at some point then.
I have the book in my pull list or in my box, so it will be done at some point. Javi will have enough to say about that, obviously. So anyway, thanks everyone joining us. Chris, why don't you take us out, my friend?
Read more comics.